Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, sister.
One who has gradually practiced, developed, and brought to perfection mindfulness of the in and out breath as taught by the Enlightened One illuminates the entire world like the moon when freed from clouds. That is from the Therigatha, which is translated as Verses of the Elder Monks, from the 8th book of the Khuddaka Nikaya. Those are the teachings of the Buddha. So I got interested in the breath because that's what we do a lot of. Without the breath, we would not be here. And it is such an important part of our meditation as well, the breath. And I was looking at my friend Swami Sharadananda put this book together called The Power of Breath. And I met Swami when we were working with Bernie Glassman in 2002. And she, as Bernie called her, she is a teacher of teachers, a yoga teacher. She's practiced it for over 40 years. She taught it in New York City. She was the head of the Sivananda yoga centers. And while we were together in Montague, Massachusetts for about 9 months, she led a weekly yoga class after meditation, which was very nice. We were in Montague, Massachusetts, in, I guess it's like the Berkshires, the beautiful, beautiful place. And she said, at that time, she said, you know, I should write a book about the breath. And I said, great idea. And she did. It's a really wonderful book, all about the breath. And in the introduction, she says, learning to breathe well is one of the most powerful ways to revitalize your body, mind, and emotions. Learning to breathe well. So I was intrigued. Am I not breathing well? Could I breathe better? So, well, yes, what the breath does, right? We're intaking oxygen, which enlivens every part of our body, and it's also eliminating waste, carbon dioxide, and other impurities from the body. And if we are breathing well, we definitely feel better, vibrant, healthy. She says, yoga philosophy teaches that your breath is the physical manifestation of the vital energy that gives you the ability to live and breathe, move about and function in the world. It is this life force that allows you to think, digest food, hear sounds, laugh, sneeze, all processes important to life. And they're both conscious and they're unconscious. And this vital energy is called prana, right? Prana. And what I found interesting was she has all these breath exercises, and I tried a few of them, but I didn't have time to really go into depth, but I could see where they'd be very useful. So there are 5 functions of the breath to make prana function. All right, so the first is prana, which governs our inhalations. And she says, this is your vitalizing breath, the dynamic force that enables you to take in all forms of energy. That's the inhalation. Samana is the second form of vital energy processes, where the oxygen enters your lungs, which nourishes you to be able to do these different functions like digest food and understand thoughts and feelings. Vayana governs your circulation and the distribution of oxygen in your blood, in your body. And this is your expansive breath that distributes vital nourishment and equips you to expand into the world. And the last, apana, oversees exhalation and thereby the release of carbon dioxide. So as well as being a cleansing breath, it is also the force you use when you give birth. And then udana, the fifth, accompanies apana when you exhale, and it enables your energy to rise up and find expression. This expressive breath gives you the energy you need to find a voice and turn your thoughts into action. Yeah, we always like that. Just don't think about it, do something, right? All right. And then she breaks down the breath, 3 elements that make up a single breath. Yes, inhalation, exhalation, and retention. So yes, inhalation, right? Taking up the air, oxygen passes into your body. And then that's more or less automatic. Your inhalation is automatic. The exhalation is where you're expelling the CO2. The yogis believe that exhalation also eliminates impurities from the mind, and that if you suffer from shortness of breath or cannot exhale completely, toxins will accumulate in your body, which is interesting. I was like, I have to exhale all the way. I was practicing that on my seat. I think, now how do I feel if I'm really exhaling? And also, which was really interesting, was exhaling also helps your mind and body adjust to change. Like when you jump into a cold shower, if anybody has done that, you usually exhale really quickly. So it's adjusting to change. Retention, this was the interesting part to me. This retention means the absence of either inhalation or exhalation. That's called retention. The pause also between inhalation and exhalation is also technically called retention, and deeply calming, this little gap between our breaths. So when you inhale and hold your breath, the rate of gaseous exchange in your lungs goes up as a result of the increase in pressure. So that's interesting, right? So, which I've also been practicing. When I exhale, I've been counting, because I know I've learned that in my yoga classes, right? I'm exhaling, I count maybe up to 5. Then I wait and count maybe 3. I do it 1001, 1002 for seconds wise. And then I inhale, and I notice how the inhale is really automatic, and I'm not doing a lot to inhale. And then as I'm inhaling, I'm also counting. It's kind of a technique. So in that retention period, so right, more oxygen and also more CO2 is being expelled from the lungs. So that retention is kind of interesting. So you might practice that when you're focused on your breathing to just kind of pause in between breaths and see if you notice anything, right? It's important to really try things out here and see if it works for you. So I was also interested, right, about the breath and the Buddha, because this is what he did. And there's a story that when he was a child, during the plowing festival, the annual celebration in the village, he got a little bored. And so he kind of wandered off under a tree and sat there. And this is what he was doing. It was like a spontaneous meditation. Happened as he was observing his breath, just observing his breath. And at the end of the festival, his parents discovered him under the tree and roused him out of his meditation. He never repeated what he had done as he grew up, but he always remembered it. And so later, when he, after all his incredible austerities that he was practicing, right? He wasn't eating hardly anything, and no sleep, and he decided, there's got to be a better way, or else I'm just gonna die. So when he was sitting under a tree, he remembered what he had done as a child, and he thought, well, could this be it? And he practiced it. And after 7 days, we know the result, or however long he sat under the tree. We know the result of that practice. So he tried it, and consequently it worked, and he recommended it to others, this basic, simple breathing process. And I discovered on the internet, this world that we live in today is incredible with the amount of information at your fingertips, where you had to go to a library, or you had to be lucky enough to have a book in your collection to find this information. Now I typed in Buddha and breath, and then this fabulous information came right up. And what I found was a huge information by George Burke, Abbot George Burke, who is also known as Swami Nirmanalanda Giri. And he wrote The Practice of Breath Meditation according to Hindu, Buddhist, Taoist, Jewish, and Christian traditions. And it's a huge writing. And so I read the section on the Buddha and the breath. So this is taken from his work. The Anapanasati Sutra, this is the basic text on breath meditation. And this is what it says. At Savatthi, there the Blessed One said this: bhikkhus, monks, when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it is of great fruit and great benefit. When mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated, it fulfills the 4 foundations of mindfulness. When the 4 foundations of mindfulness are developed and cultivated, they fulfill the 7 enlightenment factors. We've talked about the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 7 enlightenment factors before. I'll go through them again. When the 7 enlightenment factors are developed and cultivated, they fulfill true knowledge and deliverance. And now in our foundations course, we are teaching about the breath. and counting the breath and how important the breath is. So it continues, and how, bhikkhus, is mindfulness of breathing developed and cultivated so that it is of great fruit and great benefit? Here, a bhikkhu gone to the forest or to the root of a tree or to an empty hut sits down, having folded his legs crosswise, or in our way, in a chair, set his body erect, and establish mindfulness in front of him, parimukha, in front of the face, at the tip of the nose. Now this was interesting. Ever mindful he breathes in, mindful he breathes out. Breathing in long, he understands, I breathe in long. Or breathing out long, he understands, I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he understands, I breathe in short. Or breathing out short, he understands, I breathe out short. He trains thus, experiencing the whole body, I will breathe in. He trains thus, experiencing the whole body, I will breathe out. And now the word body here actually refers to the breath as being the body. So that's also a little bit of information that I didn't know. Tranquilizing the bodily formation, I will breathe in. He trains thus, tranquilizing the bodily formation, I will breathe out. So he's training, you're training in all of whatever comes up. It's not like you have to force the breath to be a certain way. You are okay with whatever is. You're training, and you are closely observing. And you're noticing, which I haven't really done before, the breath coming in and out of your nostrils. This is a Theravadan based on the Buddhist teachings of breath meditation. So I've been trying that, and I would encourage you to try that because it's interesting. It kind of focuses your attention versus what I have been doing is just kind of following the breath out and following it back in, which is okay, but and he has all of these different sutras that the breath meditation is in. He's saying, and I'll also go through it, he's saying, but the thing about that is if you follow it out, it's more easy to get distracted instead of just kind of staying focused. And yeah, it makes sense, right? The breath is part of the body, and if you're focusing on your nostrils, you're really focusing on your body. And this is shamatha, right? Peaceful dwelling. It's a great way to cut through the busyness of your mind. You're kind of focusing on the breath and body through your nostrils. And but it's also important, I think, not to get too tight about it. Like just, you can get that can be kind of claustrophobic also. So you gotta kind of be gentle with yourself. Yeah, so it's just, you're, whatever comes up, contemplating impermanence, I will breathe in. Contemplating impermanence, I will breathe out. Contemplating fading away, I will breathe in. Contemplating fading away, I will breathe out. He has us all listed. Contemplating relinquishment, I will breathe in. Contemplating relinquishment, I will breathe out. All training draining, constant practice. It is bhikkhus, when mindfulness of breathing is developed and cultivated in this way, that it is of great fruit and benefit. That's simple, it's simple, and yet it can be hard. So, the 4 foundations of mindfulness are contemplation of the body. And that's what you're doing with all these, contemplating the body. Contemplation of feelings. Feelings might arise. Contemplation of feelings. The 3rd is contemplation of the mind. And the 4th is contemplation of mental phenomena, mental states, and the arising and cessation of these states. So he says that it might seem to us that we would need to delve at different times into the realities of the body, or feelings, or our mind, and mental phenomenon, and that different techniques might be needed to do this. But he says, such is not the case. Breath meditation by itself reveals the truth of body, feelings, mind, and mental phenomenon. Breath meditation by itself reveals to us the truth of body, feelings, mind, and mental phenomenon, with no need for special methods or volition on our part. So if we can just hold to our breath, really focus there, that's all we need to do. This is his teaching of the Buddha. It kind of happens naturally, these contemplations. And then the 7 factors of enlightenment. So the Buddha further tells us that this anapanasati produces the 7 factors of enlightenment, this breath meditation. Mindfulness, it produces mindfulness. It produces an investigation into the phenomena, the quality or the nature of thoughts. It produces energy, bliss, tranquility, concentration or samadhi, and equanimity. Kind of just go to the root. Practice the root there. And things kind of take care of themselves. In a way. I mean, it's not saying that we are giving up our will or our thought, but we're able to think clearer with this practice. And, right, what is the result of all of this? Freedom, freedom, right? Breath meditation is the treasury wherein the treasure of liberation is to be found. So this tip of the nose, let's try it right now. See if you can even see what's going on there on your nose and your nostrils. See if you know, just try it. Let's try it for a minute and see if you notice anything. Okay, how was that? Did anybody notice anything? Yes, Earl?
Well, the first time I started meditating, we faced the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered that, but when I was experiencing, I was seeing myself looking back at me. trying to focus on my hands. I saw my face.
Looking at you.
Yeah.
How was that?
Interesting.
Okay, so just kind of be with that. That's your first experience. Okay, all right. Anybody else?
I feel temperature and movement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Coldness in the air or relative when it comes in my body. And then when it's warm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt naturally aware on the inhalation in the same way, just the coolness, but I felt less generous on the exhalation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was the emotion that came because I found myself trying to find it. I couldn't feel it in my nostril, the exhalation.
Mm-hmm.
So I was distracted by looking for it. Less generous as a feeling.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right.
I used to practice meditation with a yoga teacher many years ago, and he would, instead of me doing my own breathing, he would count the breathing for us.
Mm-hmm.
And he would say things like, breathe in through your left nostril, breathe out through your right nostril, and then he would switch, and he would count. And the exhalation is always longer than the inhalation. And we would hold in the inhalation, and then we would breathe out, and then he would say empty, and you would breathe out some more. There's always more, and then you would hold the exhalation. I still somewhat use it, but not so controlled, because when someone else is telling you how to do it, but I can't control my heartbeat. Like if I'm after a run or something, I can bring my heartbeat down with my breathing, doing that, because it just works like that. But it was and like somebody else was saying, that it's breathing more, breathe out cool, breathe in left, breathe out. It was very similar.
Yeah, and Swami in her book here talks about that pranayama type of breathing and how, and different times of the day, you're breathing out of one nostril or the other, and it affects different parts of your brain, which is really interesting to me. And the prana, where you're closing one nostril, inhaling, and then closing the other to exhale, to kind of balance the brain as well as.
And it cleans it. It's the same as like, when people do the salt water.
Yeah.
It's like that, except it's less viscous.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, but in our practice we're really trying to stay simple. That's best, really, to stay simple. We're going, for a long period of time. So, okay. So the other, about the tip of the nose, it also means right above the lip also, can be, as you're breathing, so. So here's some commentary about when he says the whole body, and not necessarily meaning the physical body. When the Buddha says experiencing the whole body, he's not referring to the physical body, but to the breath itself in its entirety. The idea being that each moment of the breath is keenly and clearly perceived by the meditator without any vagueness or fuzziness in his awareness. Right? It's good to, sometimes we drift off to sleep, and that's okay. But you're working, but you're not really even doing that. You're just focusing on the breathing, and what happens with that is this clarity that comes. And at the same time, if it's not there, it's okay too. You know, you're just working with what is. And try not to grasp, right? That I need to be a certain way, or I need to, why am I, you know, you have this idea of the perfect meditator, and for some reason that's not you, right? So you need to let go of that, let go of that. And Larry Rosenberg, there was another wonderful article in The Lion's Roar called Breath by Breath. And Larry Rosenberg says, much of what the Anapanasati Sutra describes will turn up naturally if you just sit and follow the breathing. And if you persist in this practice over the course of days and months and years, it is natural for your attention to deepen until it includes the whole body, and for this process to gradually calm your body. Once your attention is in the body, you begin to notice feelings and your mental reactions to them, which lead you into the mind as a vast realm to explore. It just naturally happens. And if you're paying attention, you can't help notice that all the phenomenon that you are observing arises and passes away, that they are impermanent and lack an essential core. This teaching on impermanence. So there's all of this teaching, similar teachings in these different sutras, the Patisambhida Magga, the path of analysis by Mahanama. It's an ancient text that's part of the Pali Canon, and it says, for one who knows one-pointedness and non-distraction of mind by means of the awareness of in-breaths and out-breaths, feelings are known as they arise, known as they appear, known as they subside. Perceptions are known as they arise, known as they appear, known as they subside. Applied thoughts are known as they arise, known as they appear, known as they subside. This statement of the Patisambhida Magga underscores the fact that the breath is the basic substance of feelings, perceptions, and thoughts. The basic substance of mind itself. This is the breath. So we just need to focus on the breath and things will be made clear.
What's an applied thought?
What's an applied thought? I don't know. It must be just a thought we think about.
Intention, maybe?
Could be, yeah, sure. Oh, right, here we go. It defines mind for us, this sutra. Mind. The mind is intellect, intellection, heart, lucidity, mind base, mind faculty, consciousness, consciousness aggregate, appropriate mind conscious element. All of those is mind. Oh yeah, here's another interesting. Yeah. This is another sutta, Vimuttimagga, the path of freedom. This was written by Arahant Upatissa in the 1st century of the Christian era. And it's a complex treatise on all the aspects of meditation as the path of freedom. The 4th section of the 8th chapter is devoted to breath meditation. And it states, Anapanasati is being mindful, mindfulness, and right mindfulness. The primary purpose of Anapanasati is to cause a rising of perception. Removal of discursive thought is its near cause. And he says, our mental energies are depleted by constant discursive thinking. With the conservation, clarification, and correction of our mental energies produced by Anapanasati, we can lead an intelligent, coherent, and meaningful life. This is in the 1st century of the Christian era. Okay, so Anapanasati. Sati means mindfulness. Anapana refers to the inhalation and exhalation. Anapanasati Sutra, mindfulness of the inhalation and exhalation. This is what it is said the Buddha did under the tree that helped him become enlightened. Thich Nhat Hanh beloved all these years with his writings. And he also quotes the Patisambhida Magga, the Path of No Hesitation Sutra, and also the Visuddhimagga, the Path of Purity Sutra. A lot of sutras teach that while we breathe, we should just be aware of our nostrils. The place where air enters and leaves the body. Just as when we cut a log, we keep our eyes on the place where the saw touches the wood, touches the log, right? And we don't follow it out and in. It's really focused right there. So we pay attention to the nostrils and not to the air as it enters the body or leaves. Santikaro, he used to have the Path of Liberation, I think was his Sangha. He used to be in Oak Park a while ago, and now he's moved to Wisconsin to a farm. He says that we should always remember that meditation is the cultivation and practice of non-attachment. Right? The Buddha taught only the middle way, and Anapanasati is nothing but the middle way. It is neither an intense practice, nor can it be done without effort. So it's not intense, and you have to have some effort also. And it must be done with balance. Properly done, Anapanasati is neither detached pushing away nor egoistic clinging. It is a practice of non-attachment. What a great practice that is. Be very careful about sitting down with ideas like, I am sitting, I am watching, I am breathing, I am meditating, I am this, that is mine. My breathing, my body, my mind, my feelings, I, me, mine. All right, so be careful. Learn to let go of these attached feelings and ideas of I and mine. Learn to stay balanced in the breathing with sati, mindfulness, awareness. And so he's written the book, mindfulness of breathing. Ajahn Lee, another Theravadan teacher, says, actually our mind tends to be working all the time. But the work it gets involved in is usually a lot of fuss and bother without any real substance. So we have to find work of real value for it to do. Something that won't harm it. Something really worth doing. This is why we are doing breath meditation, focusing on our breathing, focusing on our mind. The other thing that I really liked what he said was the breath is one thing, mindfulness is another, and awareness is a third thing. And he says we need to twist this, braid these together so that they don't break away from each other. In other words, your awareness has to stay with the act of mindfulness, thinking about the breath, and both your awareness and mindfulness have to stay with the breath. Only then can you say that these things are factors of meditation. Breath, mindfulness, awareness. If you force the mind too much, it is bound to pop away. If you loosen your grip too much, it is going to get lost. So try to tend to it in a way that's just right. The important point is that your mindfulness and alertness be circumspect. Do not let the mind go flowing out after other preoccupations. Right? So it has to be just right, not too taut, not too loose, not too lax. All these things about breathing. It's a good thing we have our breath, that's for sure. Bhikkhu Bodhi is another teacher I appreciate from Theravadan tradition. He says that mindfulness of breathing is so effective because, as a subject for meditation, because it's a process that's available to us all the time. We can always come back to our breath, whatever we're doing, and notice how it's flowing in and out of our nostrils. I've been actually practicing, and it's really very nice. As I was preparing for this talk, I was going, okay, I need to breathe now. It's really useful to kind of slow down. So the breath is becoming an object of observation. Right? So it doesn't need you don't need anything special. It's right here with you always. Remember, that's how we talk about bringing Zen into your everyday life.
Yeah, you don't have to go to the gym.
Yeah, there you go. You might think, okay, now it is time to go to the gym, though. I'm aware of my body. I have to go. The other thing that, and Thich Nhat Hanh also says he has been watching his breath for 15 years, the breath for 50 years, and it only grows in interest. It only grows in interest. Yes, that's it, yes. And Edward Brown, the Zen tradition, he had a wonderful thing that he said. Suzuki Roshi reminded people that it wasn't about counting the breath, but he says, but a way to help us bring the thinking mind onto the breath in the abdomen. You can focus on your abdomen as well, and to encourage us to tend to take care of our breath. This is what I thought was so beautiful. And in one lecture, he mentioned having a feeling of kindness for your breath. I thought that was so beautiful, having a feeling of kindness for your breath. If we do not have some warm, big satisfaction in our practice, that is not true practice. Even though you sit trying to have the right posture and counting your breath, it may still be lifeless zazen, because you are just following instructions. You are not kind enough with yourself. Be very kind with your breathing, one breath after another. That is so beautiful, that Mahayana, a bigger vehicle, it's important to know the basic steps, and it's important to have this generosity, this kindness toward your breathing. Because really, we are all one, interrelated whole. And if you are kind to your breathing, you are kind to the world. All right, I've talked a lot now. Any questions or comments?
Well, the one thing that I seen before when I was talking about meditating and facing the wall, I saw this reflection, I thought, of me. So that when you were talking about keep the thoughts about you out, I said, oh yeah. Actually, I think a lot of the thoughts I have start with me.
Yeah, and that's fine. And so you notice that you're doing it, and so you just gently bring your attention back to your breathing, right? Mm-hmm. Our practice is really one also of non-judgment. Mm-hmm. Yes, non-attachment to being.
Well, I noticed that I have a strong attachment to some thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're really hard to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Others, kind of.
Sure. Yeah,
put them out.
And we call that habitual, mm-hmm. right? Habitual thoughts, because you've been thinking about it for a long time, and so it's hard to change that thought pattern. But just keep what all of these sutras are saying is, if you can just focus on your breathing, inhalation and exhalation, just really kind of with energy and with effort, you'll notice how maybe those habitual thought patterns might start to soften. But you have to try it. You have to give it a good try, which might mean a long time. Patience, right? This is the path of the Bodhisattva. Patience is one of the practices of perfection. The practice of patience. So important. And we're in the Mahayana, the Bodhisattva is the archetype of who we are. We're helping ourselves, we're helping others. The path is really of service, of being generous. And that includes to ourselves.
I mean, not that I want to overthink it, but I mean, for me, part of the awareness of going in and out of my nostrils is that boundary between me and not me, between my body and what's outside. And there isn't any. I mean, what is outside comes in and then it goes out. And I think in another talk, it was you or somebody else was talking about, that the air molecules we breathe in, that all the other humans have breathed them, but then we breathe out, and the carbon dioxide goes out to the plants. So So it is, you can feel the connection.
Yeah, I appreciate the perspective of the breath being the substance of mind. I probably have an expectation of my mind to settle, to calm my breathing, to then help me, and this perception that my breath is the substance of mind. Is more joyful as a contemplation than the other way, I think, right now. You know, that right now I feel more, I can sense a deeper intention to cultivate my breath, to welcome it in, to find it expansive, you know, take up the spaces of mind.
Just being simple about it, just noticing, and
not taking it for granted.
Really focusing, yeah. So it's a practice. Good one.
When that times in your talk, I was reminded of like first breaths for babies, last breaths for humans, adults, and then even in my life where breath has come in and out, and as a timekeeper, I do it by the breath. And I notice when I'm upset, I'm not breathing. You know, that it becomes a shallow, or I'm holding my breath, and then if I can come back to my breath, then I'm calm. But I mean, it's such a simple thing that we can overthink.
And oversee and not do. So I encourage you to really, when you're practicing your meditation next, really focus now on your nose area and try to really, you know, like the saw, you're looking where you're cutting, not necessarily where it's going. And really try that and see if how you can, as you work with it, that maybe you can use it in wherever you are. Okay then. Thank you very much.